Welcome to POTUS 2016, where we call the presidential horse race and pour cold hard facts on the overheated campaign rhetoric. I'm Brian Lehrer. Plenty of hot rhetoric and new developments this week. Donald Trump called for a special prosecutor to go after Hillary and the Clinton Foundation. This after reports that she, among other things, squeezed into her schedule as Secretary of State a prince from Bahrain, allegedly because he was a foundation donor. The foundation now says if Hillary wins, it will hand off much of its international work to other groups, and Bill Clinton will stop raising money and leave the board. After accusing Hillary of this pay-to-play business, Trump did turn down the heat a bit. He may drop the plan for deporting 11 million undocumented people. He now says he'll be firm but fair with them as he builds the wall. Deportation plan to be determined at a later date. Trump's also been asking African Americans to vote for him because he says their schools are horrible and neighborhoods less safe than war zones. And Hillary, very few public appearances, lots of fundraisers. Of course, this didn't go unnoticed by the Republican National Committee, which paid for this ad approved by Trump.
Welcome aboard Hillary Clinton's liberal elite summer tour. With frequent stops in Beverly Hills, Hollywood, and Cape Cod. Please use caution when opening the overhead bins, as Hillary's baggage may have shifted during flight.
Nice to see Hillary has her own plane too. Just kidding. We'll discuss all this shortly and look at more campaign ads. And later in our evidence-based politics segment, we'll examine a study that says TV ads are more effective and trusted if they don't come from the candidates, but rather from outside supporters, even ones viewers have never heard of. And one other twist this week with the respect for truth and rigor of birther believers. Trump and some supporters are questioning Hillary's health and suggesting without evidence that she hasn't the strength or stamina to be president. Makes you wonder why the mayor is so far ahead of the stallion. Yes, time for the horse race. So where are we, a week after Trump's campaign shakeup? Recent general election polls show that Hillary opened a wide lead after the conventions, but Donald could be narrowing the gap. According to Real Clear Politics, general election polling averages, Clinton, that top line in blue, now leads Trump by about 6 percentage points, which should be good news for Trump's new campaign managers, as national polling can also be a leading indicator of a narrowing in state polling numbers. But despite the unpredictability of this year's events with Trump in the hunt, the general election race has pretty much gone as expected, meaning Donald has failed to turn blue states red on the electoral map as he predicted he would. The electoral map, state by state, is the most fundamental of election scorecards. Hillary now leads in every state that President Obama won in 2012. She has also added North Carolina to her column. At work in North Carolina could be an alliance between suburban and African American voters that can also be seen affecting Virginia and Georgia. But in key electoral states, voter registration seems to be trending toward Republicans, as the number of Democrats registered appears to be shrinking. In Pennsylvania, a state that both parties see as crucial to winning the election, 3 times as many Democrats switched parties than Republicans this year. This has caused the Democratic advantage in Pennsylvania to slip by 20% since 2012. In Florida, a state with a sizable and growing minority population, the Democrats' registration advantage has surprisingly also fallen by more than half, currently standing at about 260,000 voters. It's worth noting that in 2012, Obama won Florida by less than 100,000 votes. All that is positive news for Trump. But how deep of a hole does he need to climb out of? Trump is currently running behind Mitt Romney's 2012 numbers among Latinos and blacks, and also among college-educated whites, who up until now have been a dependable group for Republicans. And while both candidates continue to be greatly disliked, polling averages show Clinton beating Trump on popularity by about 20 percentage points. And Trump is also losing out on the issues. According to polling averages compiled by the Huffington Post, Trump has fallen behind on all of the issues that matter most to voters, which if the election were held today would be a first for a modern candidate. On social issues, immigration, and foreign policy, trust in Clinton far exceeds trust in Trump. Even on terrorism and national security, issues that George W. Bush and John McCain handily dominated in previous elections, Clinton is now besting Trump by about 2 percentage points. Clinton also edges out Trump on the economy, the arena where Trump performs best. His numbers are under pressure from the business community too, which has, according to one survey, come out overwhelmingly in support of Clinton. In a recent poll of 400 experts by the National Association for Business Economics, 55% think Hillary would be better for American business. Who's second? Not Donald Trump, but Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, supported by 15% of U.S. business experts. He edged out Trump by 1 percentage point. 15% of the survey's respondents said they didn't know. All right, time to discuss this week's campaign week. Joining us via Skype from Chicago, Tom Bevan, the co-founder and editor of the political news and commentary site Real Clear Politics. With us as well, veteran political consultant Hank Scheinkopf, president of Scheinkopf Communications. Hank has worked in campaigns for Bill Clinton, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and many others. Welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, we might as well start on the horse race, Tom, since we just did those numbers. Are red states like Utah even, and Georgia we mentioned, and there was a Democratic Party poll this week even suggesting that South Carolina is about tied, though I realize that was put out by the party. Are these red states being seriously put into play?
I think some of them are. I mean, it's certainly the polling averages show, and some of the polls that we've seen have shown the race more competitive than we've ever seen in recent cycles in places like Arizona, Utah, for example. We had a poll come out that showed Missouri, Trump with a very small lead there. That hasn't been a bellwether for a number of cycles. So on balance, I think the evidence shows that the map has shifted, primarily in Clinton's favor, although, up until a few weeks ago, we did see the possibility that Trump could shift the map in his favor in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan. But he has definitely lost ground over the last few weeks in those states, and that's why he finds himself so far behind the 8 ball here.
Hank, what do you make of those registration dips for Democrats relative to Republicans in Pennsylvania and Florida, two such key states?
Very difficult problem for Democrats. The people that would normally vote for them and be more interested in registering for them are not showing up. A lot of the data being taken certainly shows shifts in the national political map. But you know what? The states that matter are the states with the heavy electoral numbers and electoral vote numbers, and Pennsylvania and Florida lead the list.
Why would that be happening at this time when presumably there are an increasing number of young people? States are becoming more diverse, which should favor Democratic registration. What do you make of it?
Look, young people, it's a wonderful idea. Millennials are going to vote, and they did vote for Barack Obama in 2008. We're now 8 years later. We don't target young voters. We target most likely voters, and most likely voters tend to be 40 plus. And we target women who are 45 plus. Problem Trump faces in the suburbs is a very significant one, and the joining that you mentioned in the intro between suburban people and African Americans in southern states, notably North Carolina, could present serious problems for him.
And Latinos. Tom, are we headed for a landslide?
I don't think so. And I'll tell you, I mean, again, the national average is about 5 points. That has narrowed some. Clinton got out to about a 7.9% lead in our averages post-convention. So Trump's trimmed about 2.5 points in the national average, although he's lost ground in the battleground states. But, ever since 2000, the country's so evenly divided and more partisan than ever that it seems like it would be unlikely for Clinton to have some sort of landslide, at least in the popular vote. She certainly may end up winning all these battleground states, even if she's only winning some of them by a couple of points, and end up with a pretty handy electoral majority. But I just don't know that in this current era, when the country's so evenly divided, that we're going to see some sort of massive landslide on behalf of Hillary Clinton. And part of that has to do with the fact that she herself is not seen as very honest, trustworthy, or likable by a good majority of the American people.
Hank, same question.
Look, what will turn this race for Trump in your view? What is the thing, if he had to do something tomorrow, this week, what would it be?
You're asking Tom?
Yes, I am. Tom, what do you think?
What would turn the race back to Trump?
What's the one thing, if he had something all in his power to do today, what would it be that would move the numbers quickly so that he could get within striking distance?
Just to be clear, are you suggesting that there is no such thing out there?
I'm suggesting that this race isn't over yet. So I'm curious.
Is not over.
Is not
yet.
over yet by a long shot.
Oh, I agree with that, Hank. I mean, look, I think you see Trump trying to employ this strategy, right, where he's even though he hired Steve Bannon, who's known as sort of a street fighter, he turned right around then and apologized for things that he'd said. He's been reaching out to African Americans, Latinos, and part of that is not because he holds some hope of winning, substantial numbers of those voters, but because he's been, I think, trying to recapture those moderate, upper educated white voters in the suburbs that's where he's really lost ground in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, and others. And if he can somehow overcome that, then I think he would be able to be back in this race. And of course, the other piece of this is Hillary Clinton's just done a better job of consolidating her base. Trump is still running 5, 7, 8 points behind, depending on the poll you look at, in terms of consolidating his Republican base. And so we'll see if he's able to continue to do that over the course. That would also, I think, help get him back in this race.
This is a hypothetical question, Hank, but how big do you think the margin would be, maybe in electoral votes, to protect against false claims that the election was rigged? Because commentators, especially liberal commentators, but also just journalistic commentators, are becoming very concerned that maybe that'll lead to violence if that claim is taken seriously by people. Maybe it'll be very corrosive to democracy for a longer term than just this election cycle, even if there isn't violence. How do you see that issue, and how big do you think the margin needs to be to protect against it?
Let's talk about the issue first of
Sure.
all. It is normatively part of Donald Trump's mantra that there is something wrong going on here, or America would be in a better place, and that's why we need him. So that's part of the story he's telling, particularly to white, blue-collar men. He needs to get them back in bigger numbers in states that matter. Like
And the
Michigan.
polls indicate they're believing him.
They're believing him, and their numbers will grow so long as Hillary Clinton is attacked appropriately, likely by third-party outlets that would be favorable to Trump, but that will probably increase the margins. What's the electoral college vote going to look like? If he loses big states and wins gets more numbers in smaller states, he's going to lose. He's got to go back to the general formula that Richard Nixon created in 1968. Southern whites, Southern Protestants, Northern Catholics, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio. Start playing the game there. Pennsylvania. If this is correct, then he could even have a play in New Jersey. Lots of white Catholic men. You know, this map is in movement, and this campaign is in movement because Donald Trump is a response to Hillary Clinton and everybody else who he's attacking.
Right. But Tom, I'm asking, in a way, an even bigger question, which is what are the implications for democracy and for the peaceful transition of power? I mean, even after 2000, with Bush versus Gore at the Supreme Court and everything else, as soon as that decision came down, Al Gore turned around and said, I respect the decision, I disagree with it, but this is what happens in our democracy, and I hereby declare George Bush the legitimate president of the United States in my view. And his supporters, came along. So how serious a threat do you see Donald Trump continually repeating the election will be rigged?
It could be very damaging. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. But certainly that has been part of Donald Trump's message that, in the primary, that the system was rigged against him. He played into that, with appealing to Bernie Sanders voters, saying that the system was rigged against him. And if you've done any sort of writing or talking and had any sort of interaction with Trump's online army, many of them are already convinced that if he does not win in a landslide, that this election is going to be rigged. So you can see sort of the outlines. And I think, obviously, the closer this is, particularly in some of these key battleground states where Trump's folks think that, and you also hear this from Trump supporters, they think the size of his crowds dictates the fact that he's ahead. They think all the polls are off, not capturing the right numbers of people or being skewed in favor of Democrats. So there is all of this swirling around out there that this whole thing is rigged against Trump. And I think if it's close, you will see that metastasize in potential ways that could be, pretty dangerous.
I want to show a couple of ads and get your reactions to them. A couple of recent TV ads. This is a Trump spot that equates Hillary with, chaos.
In Hillary Clinton's America, the system stays rigged against Americans. Syrian refugees flood in. Illegal immigrants convicted of committing crimes get to stay, collecting Social Security benefits, skipping the line. Our border open, it's more of the same, but worse. Donald Trump's America is secure. Terrorists and dangerous criminals kept out. The border secure. Our families safe. Change that makes America safe again. Donald Trump for president.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
So there's that, and here's a new Hillary ad that equates Trump with, well, Armageddon.
In times of crisis, America depends on steady leadership,
Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
clear thinking,
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
and calm judgment.
And you can tell them to go themselves.
Because all it takes is one wrong move.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
Just one.
Hank, election cycle after election cycle, we've compared these kinds of campaign ads and assumed that it matters how good they are, how effective they are relative to each other.
Sure.
In this year, when Trump's ads are really his free media, his coverage, and he buys practically no ads, is it apples to apples?
It's not apples to apples. One of the reasons likely for Hillary Clinton's significant lead in important states is the fact that she's been on television either herself or in a 527 or independent expenditure fashion. Therefore, she's been able to dominate the field. Question is, are these arguments good arguments? Well, they're not bad. Are they believable? Is the Hillary ad over the top? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. But the creation of fear against candidates, and particularly populist candidates, by the way, and Trump represents that stream of populism, which is a very big staple in American public life since almost the beginning of the Republic, is not new. That will inflame some and force others to stay away from the polls, but I don't know if it's really going to turn out people.
Tom Bevan, would you assess those two ads? Which one was more effective?
I think they were sort of equally effective and played to both. I mean, obviously, Hillary Clinton wants to make this referendum on Donald Trump's fitness to be president. And so it wasn't quite the Daisy ad from 64, but it was along those same lines, and I think effective in that way because it used Trump's own, his own words and his own clips of him in that ad. And of course, Donald Trump is a big theme of his election is this law, the idea of law and order, and that Hillary Clinton is anti-police, and she and Democrats have contributed to all of the stuff that's going on around the country, immigrants flooding across the border, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that both ads were effective in their own way. And look, it will continue to be a negative campaign. It will only get increasingly more negative because for the most part, these candidates want to make it a referendum on the other person. And to the extent they can do that, they seem to benefit from that in the polls.
And the Daisy ad, of course, a reference to a 1964 Lyndon Johnson ad that equated Barry Goldwater with nuclear war. Tom Bevan, thank you very much. Hank Steinkoff, stay here as we bring on some additional evidence. Time for evidence-based politics, where we pour cold hard facts on the overheated campaign rhetoric. We live in the age of viral YouTube videos and controversial tweets that put political candidates on the front page or prominently on a news app. But television spots are still big artillery for political candidates, as we were just discussing. Interestingly, new research finds that TV ads are increasingly targeted at specific voters, and that ads produced by big-moneyed outside groups rather than the campaigns themselves are the most effective. For example, this from the Democratic PAC, Priorities USA.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes.
And
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
You gotta see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. Oh, I don't remember.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters.
Get him the hell out of here. Get him out of here. Get out.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So why would ads from sources other than the campaigns themselves be most effective? And how are TV ads now targeted? To discuss her research via Skype from Connecticut is Erica Franklin Fowler. She is professor of government at Wesleyan University and director of the Wesleyan Media Project. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
What did you measure? How did you figure out that outside group ads are more effective than candidate ads?
Sure. Well, we do this in a variety of ways. The most important research in this area comes from what I'll call experimental analysis. And so we and some others in our field have done work that all seems to replicate this finding. Essentially, if you take an ad, and the only thing that you modify in the ad is the paid for byline, and then you randomize exposure. So you have people come to your experiment, you randomize which ad they receive. You can be sure that the differences that you're seeing across the treatment groups is due to the ad and not due to underlying differences in the citizens. And so what we find is that citizens who are exposed to the ad, which says at the end that it's paid for by an outside group, tends to move opinion more than ads that are sponsored by a candidate.
So this is good news for people who like Citizens United, which enabled those outside groups to spend as much money as they want.
Correct.
Do you analyze that this means that people are fooled by these outside groups? Because at least the candidates, when it's paid for by the candidates, it's kind of honest. And when it's paid for by groups called, Patriotic Americans for All Good Things, you don't really know who they are, and yet you're telling me they're trusted more.
They are trusted more. And it's not just that they're trusted more. So I think sort of ironically, two things. You have to remember that the bar for trustworthiness is in comparison to a politician who's running for office. And so that's a pretty low bar to get over. And so the groups that, and we say they often have these all-American sounding names. We actually parodied it in an ad that we created ourselves with a group called Americans for an American America. And it turns out that group actually exists. So they sound like they're for mom and apple pie. So relative to a candidate, they sound better. But the other thing that groups do is that they shield candidates from the backlash that occurs when they go negative. So candidates don't refrain from going negative against their opponents. But if, for example, Priorities USA airs the attack instead of Hillary Clinton, she doesn't suffer the same backlash from the activity.
But are they really independent in your experience as a consultant, Hank Shopko? Because Priorities USA is routinely described as Hillary Clinton's super PAC.
It may in fact be the case, but average citizens are not looking to see that this is Hillary Clinton's super PAC, and the people this is being targeted to are within a very thin and small area. I'm sure what the professor would call this is what we kind of might agree. It's what we used to call political consulting and still do. It's called third-party verification. This is an independent source telling you information that you can't trust a candidate to tell you. And because of the lack of belief in candidates and politics overall, the appearance of a third-party source makes it much more legitimate sounding and more believable by definition.
So Citizens United allowed all this expenditure to take place, but it also still allowed for a requirement for disclosure of who's behind it. And I gather you also tested how it lands when the individuals, who are these people who are funneling all this money, whatever the group names are, how did that work?
Sure, yeah, so we are currently working on some extensions to the work in which we manipulate the paid for byline, and in particular, add on additional information. So we don't just tell you that the ad was sponsored by, for example, the Center for American Democracy, but we tell you that that group is funded by the following donors. And it turns out that when we do that, we can actually decrease the trustworthiness of the ad, and we don't necessarily make it less effective than a candidate ad, but we can bring a group ad back on par with candidate ad.
Because then it looks like it's being funded by a few rich people rather than a broad array of grassroots little supporters, right?
Exactly. So, and some states are already doing this. For example, the state of Massachusetts has this requirement. And so if you're looking for ways in which reformers could move the needle, that might be one that they want to look at in particular.
Hank, what do you think, or what do you want to ask the professor?
Is it third-party verification? Is that what people are looking for? Are they that disenchanted with politics? And are they that cynical about what those ads contain?
I mean, I think to some extent they are. I think, again, when it's a presidential ad, I think it's easier for citizens to parse things out. When an ad is attacking Trump or when an ad is attacking Clinton, they're going to know which side of the aisle the groups fall on. But if you go further down ballot, you have groups like Independence USA or One Nation or Crossroads GPS, and some of those are familiar to those of us who study it. But for the average citizen, they aren't necessarily going to know.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So, Hank, do you think that based on studies like this, that we're going to see campaigns walk even further away from ads that are actually candidate ads sponsored by the campaigns and have them coordinate, even though I think it's illegal, even more with the so-called independent outside groups?
I think this work is very, very important from a research perspective, and I think it will have tremendous impact on how politics works, particularly advertising, certainly. But you're going to see more independent expenditure, not less. It's a good way to get out of the line of fire, not take responsibility. And it becomes more important because less people are watching television on the quarterly hour. We know that. It's very clear. Television is in trouble as an industry. Viewership is down. You need to get white men, you want to get an ad up. You need to get black people, you need to get the ad up. But you've got to be able to time it and put it in a place where that'll work. And this research will help figure it out.
So, Professor, now that you found these very interesting findings, what's your next study?
We're working on a whole bunch of different things. The disclosure extensions that I mentioned, we're also tracking outside activity over time. And so one important thing you might want to know, we just put out a release today that shows that outside group involvement in federal elections as a proportion of all airings is at an all-time high. And so we are seeing outside groups become more active. The one interesting thing that I would push back just a little bit is on that activity is that the one place where outside groups get less for their dollar is television advertising, because they actually pay more per spot than candidates and groups do. So in some ways,
it's too broad. They're better off doing more.
They can't qualify for lowest unit rate. That's the real issue.
More
they're curtailed.
Exactly.
Targeted online advertising.
Absolutely.
All right.
Exactly. They're dollar for dollar with the candidates online where they're not on television. So it's sort of interesting that you see so much outside group activity on television.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
And that's POTUS 2016 for today. We're here each week at this hour calling the presidential horse race and pouring cold, hard facts on the overheated campaign rhetoric. Fewer than 11 more weeks of political bombardment till the November 8th election. Keep calm and carry on. I'm Brian Lehrer. Thanks for watching.